Okay, so these are the first concepts I did for Gears of War 2. I don't even know if the design doc was completely fleshed out at this point, but we did know that we wanted to do a different kind of locust. So obviously you can tell by his stature that he's a little thinner. We skinnied up the guy a little bit, and then it kind of came down the line that we wanted him to be a priest. So obviously with the priest you want to have things dangling off and kind of give him a, I guess, for lack of a better term, we kind of gave him a Pope hat, and then you know, he kind of just followed suit. We want him to be kind of gangly and look like he's a little more lithe than the other locusts. When I started, this actually was just going to be a locust variant, and then as I was working on it, the design came through that this is actually going to be a boss scourge. So the design evolved as I was working on it, and at first he was going to have this kind of saw hand that you fought him with, and so I started working on that, and I got tossed out, and obviously I didn't finish that part. But I think the most successful part was the straps coming down off his helmet, and I want to say that Kevin Lanning kind of came up with that idea, and we riffed on it together, and it came out really well in game.
This is Kantus, unclothed, naked kind of version. This is like the bare bones version. Basically, we modeled out the proportions of this guy, put all the straps on him, and then from there we went in and started adding all the armor. So as you see right now, we had a bunch of flaps going on, cloth pieces from Jay's concept. So here's the cloth pieces added on, and once animation gets put onto this, it adds a lot of motion to it and really sells the character. This is the final all-together Kantus priest, fully assembled. He's a little bit taller than original Locust. He's fitting on his own separate skeleton. Basically, we wanted something way different than Locust Drone. As you can see, we kind of changed the color scheme up a bit too. We have a lot more blues going on, copper versus the original red and whites of the Locust Drone. So this is Scourge. Scourge was actually made before the Kantus. A lot of the elements of his body, organics pieces, were derived from. For the Kantus, were derived off the Scourge body right here. For Scourge, he's a main boss. He towers Marcus. He's probably about 4 or 5 feet taller, or 3 feet taller. He has tons of straps going on his helmet. We wanted to add a lot of physics and motion going on to that helmet area. That's Jay's concept. As you can see, we also have tons of spikes going on in the armor. Overall, just a different look than what we had for the original Locust. The drone already is a little bit taller than Marcus, so this is a scale shot to sell that Scourge is that much bigger, towers him. So when you get in the chainsaw duel, you're looking up.
The idea before was to have a chainsaw melee weapon on Scourge's forearm that he was going to fight you with, and that didn't pan out, I guess, in the designs, and they came up with this idea of him having a kind of double-bladed chainsaw type weapon. This probably took me about 3 hours to concept up because it was really straightforward. Just wanted to do something that kind of fit with Scourge and that broke in half so that when you fought him, you know, he was dual wielding. And I think it's a really compelling moment in the game when you're fighting him.
What we have here is Scourge's boss weapon. This is what he uses to attack Marcus with in the game, and basically we wanted something really menacing. We wanted to introduce another chainsaw into the game. So while Marcus has the chainsaw lancer, Scourge has a double-sided chainsaw staff, which is really wicked, and uses it to attack him with. So this is a high poly, basically just same process as all the other weapons, taking Jayhawk's concept and rough poly and then fleshing it out and continuing to add details, bolts, straps, things along those lines. This is the fully assembled staff. This is the low poly version in game. These obviously aren't the final textures. Basically what I'll do is I'll process from max whenever I'm translating the high poly detail to the low poly. I'll also pass along a little bit of texture detail, and as you can see, it's just very simple colors, but this gives the texture artist a jump start and some little templates that make it easier to select certain parts to texture it. But obviously you see most of the detail, the high poly transferred over, the low poly assembled and complete, and this is the original form that he fights with as a full staff. Here is the textured in-game version, so obviously you see it's come quite a ways, but you can also tell how the texture template that I provided kind of gave them a jump start, and they build off of that, but really give it more realistic feel. So the metal looks like metal, the straps look like leather, everything has a very finished and polished look to it, and so that's the final in-game product.
For Scourge, one of the things we really wanted to hit was his ability to affect the environment. Since he's kind of, human size, it's not like he's this giant creature that you interact with, so we wanted to have him kind of turning the world against you. So one of the cool tools that we kind of focused on for that was his ability to cut things with the chainsaw as kind of the anti-Marcus, if you will. So the best way we could really think of for him to be affecting the environment was to kind of bring back in the chainsaw elements that the player's been looking at through most of the game. And so we give him this big staff with the dual chainsaws, and we basically let him go to town on the environments for cutting down pillars, stalactites, all the stuff in the environment, and kind of tearing stuff down at you. So one of the core interactions with Scourge is the kind of a chainsaw duel with him. Now, we didn't want to have to create this entirely new game dynamic, in that it's very difficult to teach a player this entirely new way to play during the middle of a boss fight. So you take something they're comfortable with already, like the chainsaw duel, and you kind of adapt that into the tool of a certain boss. So the Scourge staff, being this double-ended thing, basically evolved into a symbol of how much power he's got. Every time you win the fight, it's cutting it down and breaking it in half until he's kind of more and more desperate with his staff. For this fight, we really wanted the fight to end with the surroundings and the room that you were in to just be completely trashed. The floor is just covered in debris, there's smoke everywhere and debris just littering everything. So you don't actually end up killing Scourge in this fight. It's more he summons his Hydra and he continues it into the Reaver ride sequence where you're on a Reaver yourself and you're combating the Hydra. So it's really just more of a... the actual combat with Scourge is really just more of a starting point for this one extended, full level linked boss encounter with Scourge.